What? Why are you shaking your head?
You're welcome.
Welcome back to the CFF All Access Podcast as I tilt my camera down. I'm Eric Froton. This is Josh Chevalier and, of course, John David Yonke, not to be confused with John David Booty. And we're going to talk a little props this morning. This evening. Right, I'm on the West Coast. Time is all relative to us. But, guys, we got a pretty decent limited prop release here to work with today, and I wanted to go through a couple of things. First off, we're not used to getting this on Mondays, so this is kind of a rare thing. And I figured part of the cold open, we might as well sort of dive into it. But with the Maction, CUSA, Sunbelt, with these early games coming now, which will be, I mean, we're going to be hot and heavy over the course of the rest of the season. Start tomorrow with FIU at Liberty. We also get New Mexico State and Jacksonville State. Santino Marucci. We get to see him tomorrow. So pretty exciting that we finally get a Tuesday slate. But that being said, we got props for Oregon and Ohio State. We got Western Kentucky UTEP. We got some Utah, Arizona State, Penn State, USC. We've gotten, and obviously Colorado, because as the books have to get their 310 Shedeur Sanders line out. What I wanted to focus on a little bit is the parlay markets, and with Underdog, Prize Picks, and now kind of new to the game, Sleeper. You're seeing Sleeper get these out really, really early. Same thing with Underdog. Prize Picks has been gun shy, like noticeably in terms of what they've been putting out in terms of timing. They're lagging behind the other two, but they still have to put something out because they have to, match the market and the pacing. But they've been very quick to move it. Sleeper has been falling behind, and I'm going to give you an example today what happened. We saw three particular lines that have moved in the big games. One, Dylan Gabriel opened up at, I believe, like 239, somewhere in that ballpark. Let me see. Let me give you the 239 he opened up at. Currently trading at 258.5. At most outlets, you'll see Sleeper is hanging back. They're trying to induce more overs, but they're currently, I think, 249 right now. You're seeing already in one day, just immediately, a 20-yard difference because they didn't know how to price this market. On the other side, Will Howard opened up at 227.5. He has since spiked up into the 244.5 range. Pretty much his average 244.5, which is obviously a 17-yard spike, something that was easily taken advantage of. And again, after all these markets moved, because as soon as you put it on FanDuel, everything else gets affected. It's like the parlay markets you have some time with because the odds are always in your favor and they're skewed, and it takes a little bit to find out. As soon as you put it on one of those domestics, it's gonna tick. Especially if you're going to do it from a book that has a marker on it, which if you're following one of us, chances are you have a marker of some kind at some point, given the rate that Josh and JD, myself, Bainbridge, Thor, these guys in the know, we've been out there getting them. Got them last week pretty good. But they moved quickly and right away. Last one before I get your thing. Trevion Henderson opened up at 45.5. He hasn't gone under 60 in any game this year. We've seen him tick up to the 55.5 as well, right out of the gate. I just wanted to get some of your thoughts on the opening market, if anything else really kind of stuck out to you, as well as those plays.
Yeah, I'll let you go first, JD.
No, not really. The opening markets, you can get a few of them, but if you have to pair them up with other people, you're looking for like multiple different props to be opened up super incorrectly and to be staring at the screen for the hour in which they're off. So not really. The only one that looks good to me coming off the gates is Caden Salter's rushing yardage. Florida International, really interesting. They're 8th in the country in passing explosiveness, and they haven't really played great teams, but they did shut down Indiana's passing attack decently. And Liberty's passing attack is basically throw it deep or don't throw it all. So they're going to have to move the ball some way, and their defense has been forming pretty well, so should have the ball a decent amount. So that's going to be a hit for me.
Yeah, I'm Dylan Gabriel still at 258. I mean, that still seems a bit low to me, considering I think this game's going to be a bit of a shootout. But the fact that he opened at 239 is crazy.
Wild.
Uh, and I think that's a good point on your point, Froton. Friday, Prize Picks will release a lot of props, and even Saturday morning, I just went and just nailed them, and I went 7-8-0 on just those parlays that I had on Friday and Saturday that were released after all of our shows. So some of that stuff I might just put in the Discord, but I think you're right. Like when Prize Picks has to release late and they don't have others
Yeah.
to compare to very well. They were super low on Isaac Brown. I think they opened at like 43 or maybe even like 24, and then he shot up to like a little bit higher. But
I caught him at
he
39.5
yeah,
before, but 43.5 certainly. He even settled around that, I want to say.
yeah, and he hit at 83. So there's some
Yeah,
tendencies.
no problem on Isaac Brown. Yeah, he's no sweat.
Right. And, there's a lot of these guys at this point, right? When we're talking about injuries or some freshmen that might be hitting later on, there's going to be some opportunities because projections are just averaging out what players have done already and predicting that and what they're going to do according to the defense they're going to play. So we have less data. That's where you have a leg up on the market. And so some of those guys too, looking at that, there was just some stuff too. And then also, Trevion Henderson, I am intrigued what he ends up being at because last week he was 48.5 on Prize Picks against Iowa. At that point, I was like, yeah, I'm slamming that for sure.
Give it to me.
Because
Yeah.
it's just easy at that point. So I think looking at the Trevions is really good. We got a guy in the chat that says the same thing. That line on Trevion Henderson versus Iowa last week was crazy. In the low 50s, I think. Don't think it'll be that low ever. Yeah, like I said, I got it at 40. Once it dropped to 48.5, I was like, yeah, I'm hitting this and I'm pairing with Isaac Brown and we're gonna put some money on this. So I don't know. I think those are definitely ones to look at in my mind. Anything on Trevion Henderson at this point is pretty good. What do you guys think about Evan Stewart? I'm always scared to go after it.
Oh, I don't know what to do with him.
He can hit it in one. It's like Abu Sama, right? It's like you want to hit it because he's never going to do it. And then he hits a 77-yard run on you. And it's like,
dude.
And it comes back this week and has like 7 yards.
Yeah, Abu Sama, just stay the course on his unders and you would have been fine. Obviously, Jackson took over this week and pretty much asserted himself as the dominant primordial beast of that backfield. So no more Abu Sama unders at 68.5, I don't think. Huh? I think that has sailed.
For sure.
We'll go for it, Josh. Where we want to go with this?
Well, that was fun, man. Prize Picks are always fun to talk about. And like we said, we got the show on Fridays that will be dropping every week, 20 props in 20 minutes. So just quick hitter stuff by JD and I. And that's going to be a lot of fun. Hey, let's take a quick break. And then I got a fun little segment for you guys that we haven't talked about a lot. And I'm looking forward to showing some stuff to you. All right. We are about halfway through the regular season of college fantasy football, which means we're at the midpoint. So I want to do some midseason CFF All-American list and see what you guys have to say about this. I threw it in our show sheet to show you, but I basically just took the guys who have the highest fantasy points per game. So I did 2 QBs, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, a tight end, and a flex. And just put them out as a list. And so wanted to tell you guys who those are and then where their fantasy points per game are and then get your thoughts on this list. And I got a couple other questions for you guys. So we got John Mateer as the top QB overall, 35.9 fantasy points per game. We knew this system with a dual threat because we've seen it before with our boy at Western Kentucky a few years ago. But John Mateer, and then we have Blake Horvath as QB2. That was a little bit surprising. I mean, we know we've had some big weeks, but
he's not QB2. Come on. That's the 4-point passing touchdown and suppressed passing yards. Come on. Cam Ward is QB2. Come on.
He did make that. He did make. Yes. He's definitely up there for sure. Jalen Milroe, I guess, would also be into that suppressed list as well.
Absolutely. Frankly, a casino favorite. If I made this. This is officially his nickname now, because he is basically Robert De Niro's character in Casino at this point.
Yep.
Ace Holstein. Ace Holstein has to be considered in at least honorable mention All-American. Was undrafted in most leagues. I mean, in all of our best ball leagues, he's unowned. It was Rebel Yarnell. But Eli Ace Holstein from Pittsburgh has to be considered. And I'm a passing guy too. So, I mean,
yeah, for sure.
I love how they're swinging around over there. Total sea change over there for Pitt.
Yeah, for sure. It's a fun offense, and pairing it with a mid, a defense that they're decent against the run, but can't defend the pass to save their life. So they're just getting shootouts. So 2 running backs, we got Ashton Genty, of course, at the top at 41 points per game. And then JD's boy, our boy, we all love him, Desmond Reed at 30.9 fantasy points. Then we got Nick Nash at 37.8, Trey Harris at 29, no surprise. Ty Felton, 28.5.
Ty Felton, let's go.
I know. And then tight end, Harold Fannin, who might be the Heisman at this point.
What a game record
in fantasy.
What a
29 fantasy points per game, doing it against Penn State, Texas A&M. I mean,
oh my God,
crazy.
He's such a problem.
He's not even a Tito.
No, he's not. Well, I don't know. Harold Fannin has Tito properties, but dude, whatever. You can't argue with what he's doing. I mean, he's getting carries. He's doing everything. He's doing absolutely everything. He's only been through 5 games, averaging almost 30 points a game. It's just, you don't see this very often like this. I think probably the last one was, you think, did Holker reach these rarefied heights? Do you think? I mean, dude, Fannin has 672, actually, you could say 700 total yards in 5 games. When was the last time we had a tight end who did something like that?
Right.
I mean,
it's absolutely
from
insane.
Nevada is the one that comes to mind from a couple of years ago. Norvell era Nevada. I forget his name off the top of my head. Cole Strange? No, that's the tight end. No, it's
who'd you say, JD?
Turner.
Yeah,
Cole Turner. There you go. He's the one that sort of comes to mind. But I don't even know. I don't even know if that's who is Harold Fannin's comp.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, it's crazy too. You have Harold Fannin's outscoring the second closest. Well, I mean, you have Jack Besh at 25.
Now we're talking Tito. Now we're in Tito land.
But true tight ends, I mean, Tanner Koziel is next, and he's 19. So he's 10-point difference. Same as Ashton Genty as far as him to the next running back. So it's pretty crazy. He's dominant.
It's amazing.
Yeah. And then the last in the flex position is Caleb Johnson, who's a guy that, man, came out of nowhere, wasn't even starting at the beginning of the year, in 29.8 fantasy points per game. Honorable mentions, we got Jalen Milroe, of course, RJ Harvey at 29.7. He was barely edged out. Our boy Eric Froton, loves him some Travis Hunter. He is on this list as well.
I tried to tell all of you.
Yeah, for sure. We're just idiots.
Caleb Johnson. Is he? I mean, there's rumors swirl. Did I see something about him potentially redshirting?
Oh, can he do that at this point?
He's played 5 games.
No, he's played 5 games. Okay, good. Hopefully that was just fake news. Apparently it was. Thank God. I got scared for a second there. But yeah, absolutely. Can't argue with any of those so far.
Yeah. So who else would you guys? I mean, you talked a little bit about some other guys you'd have on here like Cam Ward, but who else would you guys put on this list above these guys? Maybe they're not above in fantasy points per game, but they're deserving of being on the midseason All-American list.
Dylan Sampson, Tennessee, has been the engine of that Tennessee offense. It hasn't been Nico from a fantasy perspective.
Absolutely.
Dude, Nico's got premium draft capital everywhere. Like the ascension was sort of a foregone conclusion. Not anymore. And I mean, I'm not saying not anymore, but just from a college fantasy perspective, he's not an every week starter. Like you have to make decisions with him now. You can't just start him willy-nilly. I think he has to be involved. And I will give props. I mean, Omari and Hampton has been just right as rain. I just think from a consistency standpoint, he really has been he's been vital. From a unsung hero, dude, how about Cameron Scatterbo? Cameron
Yes.
Scatterbo, you watch him, and
Yes.
he's not sexy. He's
No.
boxy. He's sort of like a fire hydrant type guy. He's not.
He's Cody
fast.
Schrader.
Yeah, but even I think he's even more physical than Cody Schrader. But the point is, somehow he just does it. So I really have a lot of respect for what we've seen out of Cam Scatterbo, and like true to form, wide receivers. We talk about it all off season. Who knows what we're going to get out of the wide receivers? Who knows? For instance, did you know that we were going to have 2 freshmen in the top 10 of the fantasy points per game?
Boom.
I didn't know that was happening.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm glad that I have Ryan Williams and Jeremiah Smith in the Golden Pig Invitational, which I am currently smoking. But I didn't know that was coming. That being said, we mentioned Ty Felton, Nick Nash, Denzel Boston has asserted himself as being a legit one. Let's not forget it. You want to talk about Tito's? Well, we got to talk about winos as well. We got to talk about those guys who are tipping the bottle a little too much. Wide receiver in name only, Brashard Smith.
Yep.
SMU. How does he have wide receiver designation on Fantrax?
Yeah, we're gonna talk about one today.
Slip through the cracks.
Avery Morrow is coming up in that
Avery Morrow. Another one.
That one makes absolutely zero sense. He never played wide receiver.
Those two went on a romantic escapade down in Napa Valley. Had themselves some Chardonnay, right? A couple of winos right there. How is that happening? I actually picked up Avery Morrow in a couple of spots. I think we talked about him on the waiver wire portion of this. I mean, you can't fucking year in, year out. Trevor Pena, right? Not the base, it's the Trevor. He's a top 12. He's a 1. I don't know. Well, the college fantasy football is the best. You don't see that stuff out of pros. That's why we're so lucky, everyone. Congratulations, everyone who's watching. We're better than them. That's
amazing. JD, you have any thoughts? Players that you would add in here?
I think we hit on the top 100 pretty well there. So we covered it.
No, that's awesome. Question here. Well, a couple other guys mentioned in the chat. Ryan Williams, right? We mentioned him. Jeremiah Smith and Ryan Williams. Yeah. Caleb Brown was the Iowa guy.
Caleb what? Hold on. Yeah, Proton was scrolling a little too quickly today, apparently.
Yeah. Elliot says, look, these winos do not exist in my leagues, my friend. So
that's my man Baconfield out here. I don't know what happened to his awesome gimmick, because I'm a big bacon guy. What's up, Elliot? What's it? You going by your regular name? You got to change your handle back, bunny.
I know.
Baconfield is a well-recognized handle and influencer in the college fantasy industry. So
there you go.
Love me some Elliot.
Got a question here from Steve Jackson, our boy. He says, sell high on Mateer, like midway through. Is it time to sell on our boy? Are we
well, he's about to hit the Mountain West Conference schedule. Now we want to sell him? No, you can't. I mean, you better get one hell of a return. More than DJ Lagway. Jacko, hey, just so Jackson knows, I feel bad. I was supposed to get him a trade offer. Jacko, I'm not doing that trade anymore in Winning Edge. I'm currently, this week, I went 2-0. I beat my friend Joe Bot Capozzi, the CFF coordinator, who was sitting at 10-0. I dealt him his first loss. I'm now sitting at 7-5. So my CFB Winning Edge team, despite being thin, we're acquiring veterans and we're having a go at it. So I'm sorry, I can't sell all my seniors for DJ Lagway.
There we go. The message has been sent, my friend.
That's right. Now everybody knows.
There we go. All right. Well, that's fun. Yeah,
Leland helped me out. Thanks, Leland.
So my last question here, I want to do a little Ashton Genty watch, since we talked about him. We hyped him up. Not that he needs hype last week, but look, the kid was averaging 42 points a game last week, and look, he undersold this week, man. He only had 186 yards and 3 touchdowns.
Under.
For 36. I think it might hurt his campaign. I mean, he only this is honestly, this is the thing that kind of hurts him, is that they're going to blow out some of these Mountain West teams so bad that he's just going to sit the second half of games, which is smart, but 13 carries for 186 yards and 3 touchdowns.
Dude, I'm just happy that they're coming to Vegas on October 26th. Because if you think I'm not going to the Ashton Genty Hajj Malik Williams game, then you don't know for a ton.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, with
With
Jalen
bells
Milroe,
on, I will be at
yeah.
that game.
With Jalen Milroe, Vanderbilt beat Bama this week. That hurts his Heisman campaign a little bit. Does Ashton Genty, does he have a real shot at this thing? Or is it just like wishful thinking on my part that he can win it? I mean, obviously Travis Hunter is up there too as guys that could potentially win it as non-QBs. Is this the year that we get a non-QB?
No, JD, why don't you take it? I've been talking a lot.
Non-QB for what? Heisman?
Yep.
Oh, too early. But he's a G5 guy, so I doubt it. Unless they make the playoffs, I think he would have a legitimate shot. But he could. Nobody's really seized control, right? And it seems like we got some parity this year. So maybe some teams run the table, but even if we do, there's not like a clear number one guy in these teams. I guess Cam Ward if they make it. But at this rate, if you're winning by one against Cal and you need a overturned call to beat Virginia Tech, I mean, I think we can kind of cast a whole lot of doubt on that. So, I mean, it's kind of actually setting up. I mean, there's definitely some chaos going on.
Do you feel like, so at this point, it comes down to Travis Hunter and Ashton Genty. And look, I mean, Colorado, have they lost only one game so far, right? To Nebraska, that was it.
Yeah.
I mean, so they're got a good record as well. I mean, between those two, who would be the non-QB that you would take to win the Heisman?
Hunter. Probably Hunter. But, dude, Genty, I think he has to be perfect. He has to be perfect. But I do think that he's that once-in-a-generation talent. And, like, it's the right moment with the 12-team playoff that, Boise gets in. And it's conceivable, if you saw on Bud Elliott's projections today, he has Boise having a bye and a 4 seed because the Big 12 is such a catastrophe. They're all beating each other. We don't know who the best team is. Still don't. Yeah. We won't know until the season ends who the best team is in that conference. Nobody knows. So they have a real shot at a bye. If you can get Boise running the table from here, getting a bye, because it doesn't say it has to be a Power 4 conference winner. It's a conference winner. And if Boise goes and runs it, does it strong, has a big game against UNLV after showing strong against Oregon, and Oregon goes and runs out, which is obviously key to them, he's in play. Yeah, I think he's in play. As crazy as it sounds, and JD isn't wrong. He's right. It sounds ridiculous, but I think we're there with Genty.
Yeah, I agree. A couple comments here. We got Mike. He says Hunter will need 8 to 9 wins to win the Heisman. Genty will have to go to the CFP, even then I highly doubt it. But Leland says NIL and 12-team playoff has created the parity needed to have a G5 winner. So, man, this changes maybe already making a ripple effect here.
Oh, boy.
So, it's interesting. Lots of comments here. Is Travis Hunter the best CFB player of all time?
All right, settle down.
Yeah, we've gone a little crazy at this point. And
Ryan Williams. Everybody knows it's Ryan Williams, obviously.
Yeah,
and Jeremiah Smith. They're both the 2 best of all time.
Clearly.
Yeah, obviously.
All right. Well, let's get into some waiver wire talk here. We're going to take a break and then come back another end and start talking some QBs on the waiver wire. All right. JD, I'm going to give you the floor first on QBs on the waiver wire this week. Got some good ones this week. Who you got for us?
I didn't have a ton interesting. I just wanted to shout out Ethan Vasco. I know he's pretty owned over at Coastal Carolina, but he graded out top 5 in passing grade. He's had a few big performances, and that offense has just kind of kept surprising me. So surprised me a few times, and I'm ready to buy in. Decent little runner, Sunbelt play. Looks like he's going to kind of be a good look. I'm hesitant because this player just played App State, and by now we've seen enough of App State's defense to just play anyone going against them. Louisiana gets the call this week. They were fortunate enough to get Wake's defense, who's another just jam and play everyone. Clemson plays them this weekend. They're on the DFS main slate, so this is just good lord. But anyway, Braylon Braxton for Marshall. So this Marshall team, like I've just been kind of picking up their players because they're free everywhere. They transitioned to an air raid, and again, no one really cares because there's no stars there. But anyway, Braylon Braxton got the call. He ran for $140 and 2 touchdowns. And if you're going to be doing that with an offense that spreads it around, it obviously makes the wide receivers that I had been targeting, like Christian Fitzpatrick. It's obviously not great news for them, but it's great news if you need some spot starters. Because I mean, you look at the schedule: Georgia Southern this week, okay, pretty good. You got Southern Miss still to go on the schedule. Yeah, you could absolutely pick this guy up for nothing, and he might be worth the start. He's a little scary, but he's looking pretty good to me.
Yeah, that's a good one. What you got for a time?
Tom Sawyer Robertson. I mean, we got to start taking him seriously, right? At 3 straight games of 30-plus points, he has accounted for at least 3 touchdowns in each of those last 3 games. He has 3 rushing touchdowns. He even has an 82-yard rushing game just to chip in, just to have a little fun with you in case you wanted it. I mean, at this point, it's palpably obvious he is not giving up that job. And as we sort of alluded to, the Big 12 is an absolute roll of the dice on a weekly basis. Who knows what you're getting there? You're not getting a lot of defense a lot of times. We like that. So I think he's only 4% owned. I mean, you have to consider it. That's a smoking deal. Kevin Jennings, SMU. All right. I mean, I'm here. I think we're here.
Yep.
You know, out of his 5 starts, well, what even starts? He only had 3 starts, but even so, the first week put up 23 points, goes 21.5, 29, 28.5. Against Louisville last week, ran for 113 yards and a touch. And even still, he completes 78% of his passes. He's not throwing that much. You know, he's probably in the 25 passes per game range, but he's accurate and he's a clear dual threat. Those are 2 things that when you're looking at in combination, I start getting excited because you don't see a lot of dual threat QBs who you think of as run first that really have that true accuracy to their game. 7% owned. I think you could do a lot worse with him in the ACC. Mad Dog Maddox Madsen. Gosh, you got to respect him. I know that he has Genty there, so Genty has 1 million touchdowns, but he dumps it off to Genty too a lot. That's nice. And let's face it, they're advancing the ball forward and getting first downs all the time. If you're just going to flop beat Boise State into the red zone and you have them scoring 60 points a game, well, guess what? Just by osmosis, just by simply handling snaps, Maddox Madsen is going to have opportunities. And while he's, obviously not, the run game is their calling card. They rank first in EPA per rush, first in yards per successful rush, thanks to Genty, first in yards after contact. But they still have a 45% passing success rate. They're 28th in EPA per dropback. It's not like he sucks. And quite the opposite. I think he's a pretty decent hand, and he's young. He was injured last year when he was just really starting to come on. Last week gives us 27. 21.5 week 4 against Wazoo, who's, as we talked about, they didn't really lose anybody as a Power 5 team, and they transferred down into the the lower division in the Mountain West. So put up 256 and 3 touchdowns against Utah State. They have a pretty nice run of Hawaii this week. Why not? UNLV should be a competitive game. We want to see that. SDSU, Nevada. I mean, they have the full slate coming. I feel great about it. And then lastly, he got banged up, but you got to respect what Zion Chris did. I mean, they needed a shot in the arm from something. Wasn't coming from Donovan Smith. Definitely wasn't coming. 11 carries, 97 yards, a touchdown before he gets hurt. 15 of 18. I know TCU isn't the best defense in the world, but dude, 15 of 18 is 15 of 18 for 141 and a touch, no interceptions. And then he gets hurt. It just, you feel bad, but from a dynasty perspective, why wouldn't you want a piece of him? Pick him up.
Yeah, Zion Chris is a great one. We've seen Tulane quarterback. Sorry, Willie Fritz's quarterback, who was at Tulane for a long time. Has always, and they're solid, right? And they're not going to get you the boom weeks often, but they're going to get you 25 points a game, and there's something to say about that for sure. So high floor guys there. I love that. Hey, one other guy I'm going to mention here, and we've already mentioned him a ton on the show, so I won't spend a lot of time on him, but Tyler Huff, man. I mean, this kid just comes back every week. And this week he hit 43 fantasy points, 176 yards, and 3 touchdowns on the ground. Man, he's just a perfect quarterback for our boy Rich Rod. So 15% owned, so he's still not super high. You can still get him this week. Playing early this week against New Mexico State, another juicy matchup. He should have plenty of touches in that game. Him and Trey Stewart.
Tyler Huff put up 45 on me in the 50-teamer this week.
That's hard to come back from.
Yeah,
yep.
Get him. Just get him. Yep. Get him away from me.
Yeah, there you go.
Out of my nightmares.
Proton, I'm going to throw it to you for the running backs. Why don't you give us some of your favorite running backs this week?
Rich Rod, Jacksonville State out there pumping. And our boy Trey Stewart, 3 consecutive games, 17, 16, and this week 24 carries.
Yep.
Against Kennesaw Mountain State, which is more like Buzzsaw State is what I call them, because they just get run right through. 63 points they put on them. But if you look at Jacksonville State, last 3 games, 34 points, 44 points, 63. He has accrued 7 touchdowns over that time frame. Mr. Trey Stewart popped in 4 last week. He is owned in 10% of leagues. Bro, if you have the defined workhorse over there at Jack State with our boy Rich Rod, I don't think I need to go through the entire lineage of college fantasy football to explain what that system looks like. So we're going to go with it. As we previously mentioned, we don't have to get too far away, but Jalen Jackson for Iowa State, 1% owned, and a full cucking of Abu Sama. It's signed, sealed, delivered with a kiss. Justice Ellison, he's only 1% owned. Justice Ellison, 14% owned. And at some point, consistency matters, at least in the deep leagues. Maybe if you're in a 14 plus, I understand like he isn't sexy in a 12-team league, but because he's getting 10, 11 carries a game, but he scored a touchdown every single game this year, doesn't catch passes. But if you need somebody who you're like, all right, we got a tough bye week and they're coming up and you need solid low double digits, 14% of Justice Ellison and Kurt Signetti's nuclear offense that is literally, and I'm not just saying it, literally has yet to score under 40 points in a game all season long. They've played Northwestern, Maryland, UCLA, Charlotte. Okay, these are all Charlotte's a lower division, but 3 Big Ten teams yet to score under 40 points a game. All right, well, I want to be invested in that room. And then a
Kurt
couple
Signetti, man.
Kurt Signetti, all hail, bless him. And then from a dynasty perspective, I got to see this guy up close and personal because LaQuint Allen had a bum wheel. His foot was all taped up. He was limping when he scores the final touchdown there at UNLV Syracuse, that incredible game. I was lucky enough to be on the sidelines with. I tried to get JD to come, but he has, job, family, stuff like that. But Yassine Willis is only 10% owned. He was a truck in person, big, he's physically developed, and you saw, man, by the end of that game, after he was subbing, more often than usual for a banged up LaQuint, they were sick and tired of tackling Yassine Willis. And in that system, it looks like he is just going to file right in and be the next guy. He's 10% owned right now. Look, in a dynasty, he has to be owned everywhere. And lastly, I've mentioned him on the show before, Javian Jet Thomas, Cal.
Yes.
I'm going to say it right now. Said it before. I mentioned him before. He was almost owned. I don't understand how he's 4% owned after I cut a promo on him. Are we not watching the show? College fantasy football community? Are you not listening to Froton the OG? Let me tell you this right now. I'm going full Mafa. Pulling him out. Full Phil Mafa right now on Javian Thomas. He's better than Jaden Ott. Every time I watch Cal, I'm like, why is Javian Thomas not getting more carries? And he did this week. And, dude, he had He busted a long run that was amazing. He busted a beautifully set up screen, like Ott did too, but he got a break down the sidelines. Javian was weaving. He was creating yardage. Ott was just taking what was given to him. Dude, he's better than Jaden Ott. And he is going to be an absolute force in the years to come. 4% owned. You have to have him in Dynasty.
Yeah, I love that, man. Jet, he was amazing in that game. Little tip for 2 weeks down the road when Louisville plays Miami. Isaac Brown's going to get some tosses to the outside and some wide zone. He's just going to murder Miami because, look, Bajal Tootin and then this week Thomas were able to – when you get on the edges against Miami, they just can't tackle. And so –
And that's another
2 weeks,
guy.
Remember this, Isaac Brown. Hit him up, bro.
Isaac Brown right now. Do you need he's beyond Dynasty. He's straight up redraft 12 team as vanilla as it gets. Like throw him in. White meat babyface. Give him he should be owned everywhere.
Yeah, he's doing it on like limited touches. I mean, I think he had 8 catches this last week. I can't remember, but he had a ton. He scored 21 points. He was great this last week.
He's a lot of fun.
Yeah, Isaac Brown's awesome. JD, what you got, man?
Y'all just reemphasize some of those guys. So Trey Stewart was a guy I've been hyping up a lot. So just want to emphasize in case he's still available. The dude's legit. We hit his, what was it, 64.5 rushing over, Josh, and that was over in almost the first quarter. I think he needed 1 carry in the second. So just a joke, like the guy's taking over the backfield. Andrew Paul, okay, I was all in on Andrew Paul the offseason. This is what he should be doing. He's hurt. Anwar Lewis has been struggling through an injury. Like, guys, here's the deal, okay? He has barely more than – it's actually not even quite double the carries, Trey Stewart. He has 27 missed tackles forced. Okay, Anwar Lewis, again, not quite even half the carries, has 2. And then you watch him play, and it's like, why is Anwar ever on the field? And they're about to light it up in Conference USA play, and their defense is terrible. So we keep talking about that being the recipe. Trey Stewart, everybody. Trey Stewart. Jalen Jackson played him in the 50-teamer. I tweeted out like 3-4 weeks ago before they started giving this guy carries. I said he's Iowa State's best running back because he looks like Iowa State's best running back. And I know by now the ship has sailed on Abusama, everyone knows. But just because you break like 3 long rushes and your PFF metrics are insane, doesn't mean that that's sustainable over a bigger workload. And we've seen that now. So yeah, I'm definitely buying those 2 guys. They look like they're in for some good ones. Some younger guys I want to shout out. It's kind of the younger guys that shine this week. So keep an eye on these guys. I feel like I mentioned a different Old Dominion player every week on this show. So maybe I should just stop, but they keep forcing me to. This guy, Devin Roche, was PFF's second highest graded rusher. He forced 7 missed tackles and only 12 carries. That's notable to me. Another guy that is younger that I think we need to start paying attention to is DJ McKinney on Sam Houston.
Oh my gosh, dude.
Thought about on the list.
Dude. Go ahead, JD, but dang, yes.
He looks legit. And like honestly, he kind of looks like their best running back. I have a few Jay Ducker shares I've been streaming, and he's fine. He still looks good. He's still gonna be involved. But I mean, DJ McKinney's serious, and I've been saying it. They're running the ball a ton. Their offensive line returned everything from a year ago. They have 3 talented wideouts now they didn't have a year ago. So, like, the offense has been slept on for, like, 6 straight weeks now. It's been good. It'll continue to be good. Other than that, I feel like I had one more guy. I wanted to shout this guy out. I know he plays for Charlotte, but you can't deny it. That ECU defense is pretty good, man. They create a ton of havoc, and they were number 1 in tackles for loss a few weeks ago. I don't know where they're at now, but it's a very disruptive front. You can throw on them, especially now that Ravel, their best cornerback's out, and we've seen that. But teams haven't really been able to run the ball on him. And Hashawn Wilson goes for $164 and 3 touchdowns. Okay, he's taken everything to the crib. 6 first down rushes on only 15 attempts. So I don't know. I mean, Charlotte's it's just a weird program, but like they're just a weird program. Let's just say that. But we know there's talent on Charlotte. Okay, with Biff bringing in the talent, it hasn't shown anything. And when Wilson looks like your best offensive player and you're putting up over 50 points on a decent ECU defense, I'm paying attention.
Yeah, and Biff, man, I mean, he wants to run the ball, right? He brought in a tight end coach from Maryland as his OC last year. And, he wants to run the ball, so he's got some of those guys to do it. Yeah, so I like it a lot. What you got for Tom?
With ECU, they're 6th in EPA per rush, 3rd in yards per carry after contact, which kind of gets to the tackling metrics. But they have 18 turnovers, so it's not like the defense is doing anything wrong for ECU. It's just they're fumbling all over themselves and putting the defense in bad positions. So what are you supposed to do on that front? And it has less to do with their run defense, which makes it even more impressive on that front.
Yeah. I love all those. Yeah, I got a couple here. Some of these are maybe obvious, but Gavin Williams from NIU is a potential pickup, I think, this week. I don't know if you know what the status is on Ontario Brown, but he came out. Gavin Williams, I think, had 125 yards in that game and a touchdown or two. He was the main one that came in after Ontario. And then Jalen Poe also came in, a redshirt freshman, and lit it up too. I mean, he actually scored more fantasy points because of a touchdown that he got at the goal line. So both those guys are, I think, worth picking up and stashing just to see if Ontario Brown doesn't come back. Then NIU wants to run the ball. They've shown that in the past. So I think they're both 3% and 0% owned between Gavin Williams and Jalen Poe. You guys have any thoughts on those guys or that situation?
Yeah, you want to be involved in it. That defense, Thomas Hammock.
Yep.
That's what they do. You know, they go out and they run the ball. So go get them.
Yep. Another obvious one, and we've talked about him before, but I think worth mentioning the Ches Malusi news. Toby Walker. You know, he had. Look, they're playing Purdue, but 19 carries, 94 yards, and 3 touchdowns. He's at least worth a pickup if he's still available in your league. And he's only showing 17% ownership. So, guy, again, maybe obvious, but just wanted to point it out. And yeah, Isaac Brown is a guy that I just love that guy, man. He's just explosive.
Isaac Brown's electric. Yeah. Chaney still got like 13 carries, too. It's like still hanging around.
And that's going to. That'll dissipate over time, I think.
That is so Braum, so on brand Braum. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, but
free Isaac Brown.
Yeah, and the guy still had 15 touches for 161 yards this last week. Again, 8 catches for 80 something yards. I mean, it's get dual threats like that in PPR leagues, and they're fun for sure. So, all right, let's take a quick break, and then we'll end with our wide receivers and tight ends. All right, Eric, let's start with you on wide receivers here.
All right. Well, we're going to go with our favorite Hootie and the Blowfish, Corey Darius Rucker. Keep in mind over there at Arkansas State, with Rucker, he's had 2 bad games. One of them was against Iowa State. They lost 52-7. Fair enough. The other one was at Michigan. He didn't do particularly well on either of those games. However, fair. All right. That's why he's no longer at South Carolina. Newsflash. That being said, against mortal competition, Central Arkansas, Tulsa, South Alabama, he has gotten at least 10 targets in each game. He has scored at least 16 points and gone 16, 25, 33 in terms of his point totals. Just went and lit up South Alabama. They beat them 18-16, which really bodes well for showing how competitive they'll be in the Sun Belt Conference. That's a big win against South Alabama. Somehow they held him to 16 points. That's amazing. But he went for 8 of 12 for 172. They're not going to stop throwing. It's still Keith Heckendorf as the offensive coordinator there at Arkansas State. Give me some more Corey Rucker. On the other side, we mentioned ECU. Now, what have they been doing well? They've been doing well on a down-to-down basis in terms of moving the ball and being productive, especially moving the ball through the air, because a lot of times they've been down. They've been lost to Liberty. They lost to UNC Charlotte. They lost to Appalachian State. And Chase Soule, who was a little dinged up early in the season, he's getting 7 targets a game. In 4 of 5 games, he got 7 targets. Each of the last 3, 72, 67, 82. Hasn't caught a touchdown pass yet. But, I mean, they're getting in the part of the schedule where you got Temple, you got Florida Atlantic, you got Tulsa, you got North Texas, you got Navy to kind of close it out. Army's in there. If you can afford to wait a little bit, since they have a couple buys sandwiched in 7 and 10, like they have buy this week and then the 10. I like what I've seen from Chase Soule, and I've gotten to watch a little bit of him as well. How long is Trey Harris going to be out? Well, I mean, if he's going to be out next week, which it looks like it's entirely possible that's the case, welcome, Jordan Watkins. Deep threat du jour. Even with Trey Harris around, he's getting himself a few targets. Went 5 of 8 for 72 yards last game. That's by far, he had topped out at 3 targets, but 3 for 36 for 1 against Georgia Southern, 1 for 75 and 1 against Wake Forest. He slides into that primary deep threat role and then becomes, a real factor. Guy we've talked about before, I won't belabor the point, Trent Walker for Oregon State. When they have to pass and they're in any kind of a script where they're in a competitive game, he is absolutely worn out. Against San Diego State, 8 of 13 for 92. Oregon, 8 of 11 for 68. Colorado State, 7 of 11 for 55 this last game. And he's even gotten 3 carries in the last 3 games. He hasn't popped because he hasn't caught a touchdown. But, usage stats are predictive when it comes to touchdowns. I just feel like that's an outlier after 5 games. He's going to catch a few down the stretch. I think he's a guy that you could certainly go and roster and feel pretty good about.
Yeah, that's good.
2% owned. 2%. And he's, with bye weeks coming up, he's a guaranteed 13, 14 points as long as the script's in his favor.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And I like Watkins too. I mean, them playing LSU, potential shootout there at night in Baton Rouge. Yeah. I mean, it's going to be a fun. I mean, the slate this weekend is crazy
It's a lot of fun.
For CFF this week. It's going to be a lot of fun. We'll talk about that here in a minute. But JD, what you got, man? Any wide receivers for you?
Yeah, I didn't find it to be a super interesting week on the waiver wire, but of course, you're always looking for some guys to build out your roster with. I assume he's pretty much owned in active leagues, but I just want to shout out Jordan Tyson on Arizona State. Yeah. This is a guy that I drafted a ton of in the offseason, and over the first 2 weeks, he probably kind of slipped under the radar because he didn't really do anything big. But I mean, remember Wyoming turned the ball over like 6 times on their first 7 possessions in week 1, and Jordan Tyson still dropped a touchdown and had 9 targets in a game where they threw the ball about 9 times. So it was kind of obvious they're going to force feed him the ball, and they're force feeding him the ball deep. And we already know he's an elite deep threat. So it's there. They have absolutely 0 other pass catchers worth noting or worth looking at. And Sam Levitt knows that. And you kind of look over their second half of the schedule, and it's like, okay, they've played some teams they've been able to keep the ball on the ground against, but are there that many Mississippi States on the schedule? And I don't really think so. What are you going to do? Run all over Utah? Maybe. Cincinnati's defense is terrible. Oklahoma State, terrible. UCF secondary, terrible. Kansas State secondary has struggled a lot, and you're going to need to throw to beat that team. So I think Jordan Tyson's a guy that's looking pretty good over the latter half of the season. Other than that, Javon Tracy had 13 targets for Miami of Ohio. I think some people kind of dumped on this team, threw him in the trash. They had a really difficult start of the schedule. Some of these MAC schools do. We know it. It's Brett Gabbert. He's going to totally change the offense. They're going to throw way more. And Javon Tracy has just been a target hog, has 15 or more fantasy points in 2 straight games. So those guys are looking interesting. Other than that, there's not a ton that I found super interesting hanging out on the waiver wire. I did just want to point out that Kenny Womack is back for Western Michigan. This is one of those teams that some of the Sam Houstons and some of these other smaller schools that get overlooked. They were supposed to be really, really, really good offensively, in my opinion, this year. With the running back talent they have, they return everything offensively, the super experienced quarterback. And then Womack is, again, in the passing game. He's their number 1 guy almost every week. I know Sambucci just had a big week. Maybe that will continue, but we've seen absolutely no patterns. It will continue, whereas Womack, it seems like they might just give this guy 10 targets a game in action season. And he's showing us 25% owned, so probably most standard leagues will be there. But I know I dropped him on some where I just didn't have the space to keep him around, but he's back.
Nice. I like it. All right, I got a few here, and some of these guys are, again, what we talked about earlier, the winos, if you will. But Avery Morrow, he's only at 8%. So the dude's gotten last 2 weeks averaging 25.5 touches for 168 yards and 3 touchdowns for 28.3 fantasy points per game. So he's definitely a dude to be reckoned with in Mountain West play. He's still splitting carries there with Justin Marshall, but I think he's going to be he's going to be taking that back over after being in the doghouse for most of last year, to be honest. Jaden Williams is still out there at 12%. We've already talked about him last week.
Whoa, Jaden Williams is only 12% owned.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
damn.
So that's like some of these guys are like, they feel obvious, but they're just not owned. He's again number 2.
Looks like the primary. I mean, I don't even know if he's number 2. He might be the primary over Hobart. You never know. They kind of flip-flop. I think they were like 1A and B.
What's crazy is he got 13 and 12 targets the 2 weeks previous, and then this week 5 of 5 targets he caught, and then 73 yards and a touchdown. So he's just catching balls too. I mean, that's part of it, is that they're good targets that he's getting, and yeah, great asset there. Another deep one is Roderick Daniels. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but he's been getting
carries.
Yeah, he's a running back now. And Fantrax will not catch up with that. And look, like, so is Brashard Smith. So, but I mean, the kid, he's averaging 14.7 fantasy points per game. I think 1 week he had 15. Then the next week comes back and has 14. He had a touchdown around the goal line in this last game. So, you know, something is, I think, worth a stash in deeper leagues, where if Brashard Smith gets hurt, then this kid could really take off and potentially win your league. Roderick Daniels is potentially the best athlete on that team. If not, it's Brashard Smith. So the kid is dynamic. They just haven't really figured out a way to use him properly. Don't know. Do we know anything about Will Pauling yet? Any severity of injury?
Not heard anything at the moment.
Look, if he's out, then Trech Kahuna, obviously he went off this last week. That kid is talented. He's more talented, in my opinion, than Will Pauling. And I think he balled out, obviously, this last game. So he may be worth a stash. And then, look, you can drop him if Will Pauling comes back. But if he's the primary slot receiver, we know that they love to target that. And he had a huge game there this last week. So he's one to look at. And then Jackson Meeks came back and had another decent game. I mean, you're at that game, Froton. Is he worth rostering, or is it just he's the third target on that team, and so it's going to be really hard for him to get there consistently every week?
I'm not sure he is the third target on the team. Like, if you look at the target, or excuse me, more the snap distribution, it's him, Hatcher, and the other guy whose name escapes me behind Pena. Pena takes every single snap in the slot, and then it's sort of like the other three rotate through. Gadsden, the others sort of like rotate through in terms of their snap distribution. So he's right there with Hatcher and Gadsden. It's just sort of a matter of who gets it, and he's the primary outside threat. Whereas Gadsden's obviously more of the, along the seam and more of a safety valve type. He's being used to stretch the field. And if you were watching my feed on Twitter this Friday night, you saw me in the end zone get him do the Three Amigos dance.
Yep.
Like this right there in front of me as I was on the SportsCenter highlights.
That was pretty sweet. Got a shout out from
Intrepid Reporter. Hey guys, if I'm going to be out there, I'm going to be getting the good footage, and I don't have my ace cameraman with me there, JD Yonke, of course. So I have to get down there and, make sure I get those shots in there.
Wow.
JD was better than me last time. JD got all the good stuff. Like, he had just he was using the force. He knew where the ball was going to be before it went there. He had a pretty good showing during that doubleheader.
We got some good ones. I still got to really throw those together, like Jacoby Lane, that first one. Well, the force is with Jacoby, so you could just feel the gravitational pull stand in the corner of his end zone, and it worked twice for us, right, Froton? So yeah,
they got great there. They got to fly us into Minnesota is what they have to do, because Jacoby, I think, got like 2 catches this past game. We are the magic charm. We are the good luck charms for Mr. Lane, obviously. Like, we have to talk to USC about that. I'll be there this week. Don't worry. For Penn State.
There we go. They're going to need it.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. Any let's go with you, JD. Tight ends. You got any tight end targets out there? I feel like it's a little bare this week. Maybe 1 or 2 options.
It's pretty bare. I'm not going to mention Michael Trigg again, but he had 8 targets.
Michael Trigg, let's go. Why not? One more time.
I mean, we already know by now with Michael Trigg, and now they have a quarterback. Froton mentioned our boy Sawyer. So that's about all for me, man. It's pretty dry. If you didn't pick up your tight ends early, I think this might be a good lesson because it's hurting. We had some good ones the first couple weeks, but it's kind of hurting right now.
Yeah, keep in mind,
sure.
Trig is 17% owned, so he's out there. I'll go with one for you if we're digging deep. Currently 1% owned. Mecca Kaleki Latu is the place for me, as the song goes. 7 of 8 targets he caught last game for 65 yards against Michigan was instrumental to the game plan there. We've seen Jedfish tight ends be successful before. See Tanner McLaughlin last season there for Arizona. And he's getting used. I mean, he's getting 4 or 5 targets a game, right as rain. If you are in a deeper league and it's a case where you're getting hit by bye weeks and you need somebody who's out there, he's only owned 1% of leagues, and you're not going to get a blank out of him. You're going to get at least 3-4 catches, so that has value. And then I'm going to go with Taylor Thompson here for James Madison. I know. James Madison is a wrecking crew once again. He's only 8% owned at tight end. Dude, okay, September 28th against Ball State, 5 of 7, 91 yards and a touch. Game before that, the infamous North Carolina game, 2 of 4, 26 and a touch. This game, 9 targets, 5 catches, 59 yards. So he's had double-digit points each of the last 3 games. He's 8% owned, and he's in JMU's potent offense. Give me some Taylor Thompson.
Yeah, I like that a lot. One I got is Landon Thomas from Florida State. Anytime there's a change of QB, they can use a security blanket in those games. And Landon Thomas was a security blanket for Brock Glenn. He caught 7 of 8 targets for 80 yards, so 15 fantasy points. Look, this FSU offense isn't very good, but like we talked about, there's slim pickings there on the waiver wire. Another guy that's intriguing to me is Keon Burnett from Arizona. He was a pretty flashed early on in his career in practice, and he's had some flash games. So, there's worse guys to pick up if you need kind of a desperation moves than Keon Burnett. And there's just not a lot behind, Tet McMillan there right now at Arizona. So he's a guy that could come in as a wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 there as a tight end for Arizona down the stretch. So there we go. That's all we got on the waiver wire. I did have a few questions for y'all. You guys have some vested interest this week. JD, I wanted to ask you, and Eric, I want your opinion on this too, but Ohio State's coming to town playing Oregon. 3.5 point underdogs at home. Oregon is that right?
Ooh.
JD, how are we feeling about the game?
I mean, I guess it's probably the case with a lot of teams. Like I said, like the parity's kind of showing here. I mean, Oregon, I'm gonna be honest, they've looked okay, but it's not like they've been super overwhelming to feel great about their chances. But I don't know. Ohio State's, are they going to be able to run the ball consistently? Probably. Do we have 100% faith in Chip Kelly in this offense right now and throwing the ball? I mean, I don't know. I think Jeremiah is good enough, and pair him with Egbuka, and you got a veteran quarterback who can move the ball. It's a little tough. Whereas Oregon, it's like, okay, Holden looks pretty good. Does Evan Stewart exist? Maybe not. Ferguson's had a lot of drops. The offensive line's underperformed. Jordan James, an absolute wrecking ball, but they've still haven't really ran the ball in any matchup other than 2. And one of them's Oregon State, who just allowed Avery Morrow to resurrect. So,
yeah,
I don't know. I'm not feeling super confident. The 3.5 points is intriguing at home because it's at home, but yeah, I don't know. I think Ohio State probably has better offense, better defense.
Yeah. Froton, any thoughts on this game?
Yeah, it's tough to trust a team that got pushed by Idaho on week 1, and it just seems like they're doing what needs to be done, but they're not really hitting that second gear they're going to need to beat a team like Ohio State. I think you have to go with visitors.
Yeah, for sure. And then you're going to the USC Penn State game. Did I hear that correctly?
I will be going to USC Penn State. I might even run back the doubleheader if I feel really spunky, and I want to go and hit, because they don't start until 9 p.m. from what I understand, over there in UCLA. I could conceivably get there if I want to hit Minnesota UCLA. Feel the excitement of that Minnesota UCLA game. So I don't know. I might turn tail and head back, as opposed to doing the two-step Pasadena plan that me and JD just did a couple of weeks ago. So
yeah,
I think I have a up and back in my future for the LA game. I think I'll be heading back and sleeping in my own bed.
There you go. Well, yeah, I'm intrigued by that game to see if
I'm very intrigued.
Pull it off on the road. If Nick Singleton isn't playing, which I'm guessing he's going to play, then
he's going to play.
He is.
I listened to the post-game press conference from James Franklin, and he was saying he went through warm-ups, said if he wanted to play, feels like he could have played, but because reading between the lines, they're playing UCLA.
Right.
If they watched enough UCLA to know what JD and I knew when we were standing on those sidelines, which is that they weren't going to get much resistance from UCLA, and they were absolutely correct, and they put them on ice. But I feel very confident in asserting that you will see Nick Singleton out there, and congratulations to everyone who followed. I assume you guys are on it. Just an easy cash, 65.5, 67.5, 68 for K-Tron, whatever it was.
Yeah.
Nice, easy over cash against UCLA. As soon as we started hearing rumblings about Singleton, it's like, oh, K-Tron time. Nice, easy one for the boys. That's what we like to see.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, sweet. Dude, this was a fun show. Love, sit down and talk with you guys. Love the chat. Thank you guys so much for being with us tonight. Man, we broke a personal record on this podcast last week with 8,500 downloads. So thank you guys so much, for supporting us. That's absolutely crazy. Froton, you look like you want to say something.
Oh, no, I'm just thrilled. I didn't know we had 8,500 downloads. London didn't let me know about any of this stuff. Working me over there behind the scenes, our producer. Yeah,
we hit, top 3 downloads within the podcast downloads within the Fantasy Points family this week, which is really cool for us. And so we just got our own podcast feed too. So it's huge for us right now to get people over there subscribing to that podcast feed. It's pretty easy to get the podcast since we're dropping 2 podcasts there a week on that feed. And so we'll be pretty consistent every week, dropping those on Tuesday morning and Friday morning as well. And then rate us and review us. Those 2 things help us a tremendous amount. So if this is something that you're enjoying, then please do that for us. And then JD and I will be back with you guys on Friday, 20 props in 20 minutes. We will be super efficient and get it done. And 10-6 this last week. JD himself went 6-2. Shout out to JD. I gotta bring my part up a little bit more, but man, still hitting good on the props overall and making money. So fun times. We will see you guys with CFF All Access next Monday night at 9 p.m. Eastern live. Thank you guys for joining us tonight. But until then, do small things with great love.
What?
Why are you shaking your head?
You're welcome.